Welcome to Breaking Barriers. You know your path. We know the obstacles, and we can teach you how to tear them down. And now your host, CEO and founder of Adapting Social, John Vigero.
Welcome back to Breaking Barriers, guys. Jodi, welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, John, for having me.
I'm excited to have you. People are like, who the hell is Jodi? Can you give us a little summary?
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a big question.
Yeah.
So Jodi is first a mom. That's definitely important.
Okay.
My children are a little older, but also the CEO of the Monmouth Ocean Development Council. I'm also the CEO of the Applaud Kids Foundation, the Zach G. Applaud Kids Foundation. I'm also I own Today's the Day LLC.
Ooh.
Today's the Day Changemakers is my podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I run an international forum, and I publish a magazine once a year called Inspiration from Everyday Changemakers.
Wow.
That's Jodi, and I'm recently married.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
So you have a lot going on.
I do.
I love it. And so talk to us about what inspired you to start doing these things?
So, there's a lot of things that inspired me for each one. So you want me to go one by one?
No, well, just generally, right?
Generally?
Because most people don't do a ton of things at once.
Yeah.
So what is it that is that just, have you always been that way? I
have a little ADHD, for sure. That is for sure. But I think one of the organizations is actually Applaud Kids Foundation's in my dad's name. It's grown exponentially, and it's to help kids in the arts who could never afford to take lessons because they need this connection.
That's really nice.
And 38% of the kids that are part of it are neurodiverse. So I connect kids to something they love. My sister and I do that. And then on Today's the Day is I connect change makers from all over the world to connect with each other, those who are making a difference in their corner of the world or beyond.
Right.
And at the Monmouth Ocean Development Council, I connect businesses so that they can do better business together. We create community and a membership family.
Right.
I think connection
really cool.
is the helping to connect people for the betterment of all of them is really probably the common denominator.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Thank you.
And now where do you think you got that from?
My dad. 100%. He was my mentor. He passed away in 2015.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And so, he was my go-to guy. And he taught me all about that. He didn't have a full education, but yet he made it in his life because he fought hard.
Right.
And he knew how to connect with people.
So that was your huge, what was one huge lesson that your dad gave you, or a saying or something that your dad gave you?
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you asked me that question, actually.
Yeah.
So my dad had a lot of them, and we called them Zach-isms because he was Zach. And so they were, life is about conversation, a hug, and showing up. And
I like those.
People would say to him, what religion are you? And he goes, I practice the religion of kindness. And people go, no, he goes, no, that is what I do.
Right. I love that. That's really cool.
Thank you.
And I love about that the most though. So I like having my kids, with my wife obviously recently, changed my perspective on so much when it comes to other people in life. I love people. I'm a people person. I'm somebody who loves to go out and talk and give me a couple cocktails, I don't shut up. But the whole thing though is when you have kids, like me particularly, it made me realize everybody is somebody's kid.
That's right.
You know what I mean? And so you want to treat people with that same respect that you'd want them to treat your kids with, you know what I mean? Or whatever, in any circumstance. So it's really cool, your dad's philosophy is surrounded by kindness and love, because especially in a world, at any point in any time in the world, besides probably the 70s, people were not super loving and caring, especially now more than ever, right? You walk into a restaurant, the host at the host stand is probably a Gen Z person, doesn't greet you, you're bothering them, they're really disconnected. People are hurting, or I remember when I first got my first car, I saw somebody get into an accident, and me and 4 or 5 people jumped out of the cars and ran to go help this person.
Right.
And the other day I saw an accident, and the person was sitting there bleeding right inside the road, and nobody was pulling over, and I was in the opposite lane going and I would have to do so many different things, but that's kind of the world we live in now, and I think that's so remote and far, right? Love and kindness. But it also, that starts in the home. So your dad was a pretty cool dude based on what you're sharing. And I love that you called it Kevinisms, right?
Zach-isms.
I'm sorry, Zach-isms.
Zach-isms.
I'm thinking of Kevin over here.
No,
Zach-isms.
Yeah.
But it's so cool that you guys had that type of candor, as well,
absolutely. Absolutely.
So talk to me a little bit about, so with Changemakers and your podcast, right? So obviously people listening here could learn more about that, but what made you want to do that?
So several years ago, back in 2016, after my father passed away, I went back to school to become a coach. And I really wanted to help people in general in any way that I could. And connection coaching was my thing, my consulting business. But back then I wanted to start a podcast. I was petrified to start one.
When did you start it?
I started in 2020, so it was, so it was kind of like December 2020 is when I launched, but I was sitting on the couch in October, and that 5 years had passed since the thought process and becoming a coach, thinking about, and fear played a huge role of not starting it, right? That's what holds us back so much. Sat on that couch and I said, we're in the middle of COVID.
Right.
People need perspective here, right? And there were so many people out there doing so many good things, and I wanted to share their stories. The stories of the change makers, whether they were the change maker who was a millionaire or the change maker who started something from nothing.
Right.
We started the Applaud Our Kids Foundation with the last $100 in my father's wallet. That's how we started our nonprofit organization. And I wound up incredibly interviewing people that I knew, change makers that I knew through my life in the nonprofit world, because I've been a nonprofit for 20 years. Working for the big box organizations way back, American Heart, American Lung. And I interviewed someone from American Heart who used to work there, who was an incredible first guest. But the guests after that started introducing me to more people. They loved my interview style, and they loved the fact that I wanted to share stories of people who were changing the world one little bit at a time, whatever they were doing. So I wound up interviewing someone from Ghana who started libraries in villages. She was a factory worker who saved her money, who went to Ghana on a trip, saw that there was a need for libraries because these kids didn't have books. Now she wrote 2 books utilizing their content. And she is actually my Inspire Change awardee for my forum this year.
It's amazing.
So and then I got to interview if you've ever watched the TV show NCIS, I got to interview the executive producer of that TV show, Scott Williams, who shared about his son, who he lost only a couple of days old from a disease. And then he started an organization called Shane's Inspiration, and they're playgrounds for kids with all abilities. So one person led me to another, and what I thought about, the forum started only because I said, well, if nobody listens to a podcast, then what about if I start something where people can come? It's on Zoom. We had 7 countries 2 years ago come and listen. We talk about topics that really matter and make a difference. So, change makers became way bigger than I thought it was going to be, all because I wanted to share stories about people doing incredible things around the world.
That's really cool.
Thank you.
And the impact, what I like about that is, again, too many people look at people who are successful and just see them at like the peak of the valley, right? Like, oh wow, look at that person, look, it's cool, like they have a business, they're doing this, or they have this material possession, whatever. And the one thing though that I love the most about like a podcast like yours, and what I love to do here at Breaking Barriers, is that like the unsexy parts of doing these things is what we need to push out more, right? Like it's all the unsexy parts that move the change makers and the football down the field. And it's not the cool things where it's like, we interview people and they've done, again, like, we just had Kayla from Clean Bro on here, who's a client, and her and Jamie built a $30 million business. It's a private company, right? Like, that's unheard of, right? And most people, to get to that level of revenue, typically need investors or this or that, and they haven't done that, right? They've done it by building brick by brick by brick with crazy stories behind the scenes. So it's like those things inspire people to say, wow, if Jodi could do that, or if Kayla could do that, or if John could do that, like I could do that, right? And I think that's the inspiration, that seems like your podcast is doing. So it's really, really beneficial. It
is. I mean, an upcoming episode is the CEO, president of Brookdale Community College. He started as a tutor at the school, and he now is running the school.
So that's pretty badass.
Right?
That's really badass.
That is really badass.
I love stories like that.
And I think the other part about change makers that really happened that is unbelievable is that I bring the change makers together to plan the forum, and now they're working together across boundaries and borders of countries.
Now it's an organism living on its own.
Exactly.
It's like out there. Isn't that cool?
It's so cool.
Yeah,
and I'm looking forward to having you a part of it.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Me too.
I'm excited. And so who is somebody you're inspired by, or are you reading any books right now? What are you doing for personal development right now that people like got to get on? What are you doing?
So the funny thing is you're asking me this question. So You're a Badass is a book by Jen Sincero. And I'm reading that book right now. Okay. But Brene Brown, totally. Jason Goldberg has been a real inspiration. He wrote this book called Prison Break. He's actually been on my show.
Oh, cool.
And he's an incredible transformational coach that I really just kind of, way he spoke and the things that he talked about, really I connected with. And I love that.
Right.
Simon Sinek, he's another person.
Oh my God, he's
love.
almost like, he's so good, but he's so just, I don't know if ahead of the time or whatever, but like just the shit that he comes up with, I'm like, dude.
I share his stuff all the time.
Like Leaders Eat Last is a great book.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah. So those are all great books. But now, how do you tune into these? You're a book reader? Are you a podcast listener? Like audiobook? Like how do you digest this?
So I'm kind of old school on the books. So
Okay.
I like to turn the pages. There's something about getting to the end of an actual physical book.
Yeah.
But I love You want to laugh? I started a podcast. I wasn't really listening to podcasts, and now I am embedded in them, and I love them.
When you find a good one that gives you such good content, you like the speaker or the host, it gets addicting, right? Like you're like,
Agreed.
When's the next one coming out?
Yes.
But you know what's funny? I am somebody. So like educationally, right? I was in all remedial classes. I was in IEP classes. If we were doing tests, I was out of the room. I didn't have to take the SATs.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't go to college. I didn't do any of those things, right? Mm-hmm. So literally, when it comes to like learning and books and stuff like that, like I love the thought of it, right? Like I have like the library in my house.
Right.
You would think I went to Harvard. But what I do though, because of how my brain works, I've never been officially diagnosed with ADHD or ADD. I don't know. I've never done any of those things. But one of the things that I like to do is I'll buy a book, and my recommendation, I don't know if you've ever read it. Have you ever read Principles by Ray Dalio?
No.
That will change your life.
Okay, well, that's going to
So if
be
you
on
haven't,
nightstand.
Principles, Ray Dalio. So long story short, Ray Dalio, to just give that a little snippet, he was the founder of Bridgewater, which is like the most successful like hedge fund and financial firm almost in the country, right?
Okay.
And I think he's worth like $20 billion, right? But so what he did was he's like in everybody's phase of their lives and career. I think he says it's like a 4-phase process. When you're a baby and you're relying upon everybody for resources, you'll die without people. The second one is you're still reliant, but now you're starting to learn and do a little bit of autonomy. Mm-hmm. The third one is where you're starting to really grow and you're independent. And then the fourth one is where you give back and you start to teach people how to do these things. So in the career sense, that's what Principles is about. He's teaching you all of his principles that he learned and how he built these massive, insanely multi-billion-dollar businesses. But nonetheless, so I get this book, right, as an example, and I'll read the back of the book, the ending, and then I'll go to the front and I'll hop to the middle, and I have a notepad next to me, and I just take the takeaways from it.
Yes.
And there is something for crazy people out there like me called Headspace, and Headspace, it's like the new version of SparkNotes, but it's an audio version that gives you in like 7 minutes the breakdown of the most important topics in each book. So you don't even have to read a book. So if you're a college student watching this, you're welcome. So or even high school, better yet, high school, middle school, whatever. But point being is that so every time I'll do one of these books or I'll audio book it through Headspace or whatever else, I'll buy the physical hard copy of it and then I'll put it in my library, and then throughout like the year I'll just grab it and I'll start reading it and picking up on stuff. But anyway, my whole point is like, these types of things, like I've never gotten into just like the physical. Like I have friends and my wife even is kind of like you, where she's like, I gotta read it and I want to like go through it, whatever. Like I just will go crazy if I'm sitting there reading a book for more than 10 minutes. I can't sit still. I'm like, I can't do it. But
I don't read it in order, by the way.
So you don't?
So it's interesting you said about the ADHD.
Yeah.
So I used to.
Yeah.
But now I don't know, something happened to me. I struggle with the attention piece as well.
Yeah.
So literally I'll flip to a chapter and I'll get through it, but I don't read it in order. It's weird.
Yeah.
Certain books you have to, but like a lot of the self-help stuff you don't really necessarily.
You don't need to, right.
Right.
Yeah.
But I like this Headspace. 7 minutes of listening.
7 minutes, yeah.
That's my style.
Yeah. And you can also speed up, so it could be less than that. Like sometimes I'll listen to it and it'll be like freaking 3 minutes if you do 1.5 speed or whatever. So, but yeah, nonetheless, so those are good resources that you provided. Thank you for that. Now, talk to us a little bit about, so, I'm a big believer in like legacy, right?
Yes.
So now how many kids do you have?
I have 2.
You have 2 kids?
2 girls.
What are age range? And
Okay, so they're 26 and 23.
Okay, 26, 23.
Yep.
So gotcha. And now, if I was in a room with just them, right, and we're at an event, and somebody who doesn't know you goes, What's your mom like? What would they say?
They would say
Jodiisms?
Yeah, Jodiisms, probably, right? But I think they'd say that she's extremely motivated and dedicated and works really hard.
Yeah.
And they saw that growing up.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I was doing 60, 80-hour work weeks. So they saw that. But one wound up in nonprofit and the other's a teacher. And they have a lot of motivation to do incredible things.
Yeah.
I think that they would tell
Were you single parent raising? Is that why you were doing all the work?
No, not until I was a single parent raising after my second daughter turned 18.
Got it. Okay.
So they were raised in a 2-parent home
Understood.
up until
Okay,
then.
so they saw that all. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so they had that growing up, but I was the one who worked
Right.
really long hours out of the
Really?
two of us. And so so they saw me and they would come to my events. So I worked nonprofit and I had events they had to come at 3 a.m. to help me set up.
That'd be cool though. Like,
they had a lot of fun, and they went to galas. They went to things that they wouldn't.
See you doing your thing.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Look at mom up there on stage getting after it. Like that's pretty cool.
That's what they would say too.
Yeah.
My daughter just said that to me at my wedding. She was like, "I can't believe you could just get up there and just with no script, just go and share."
That's
do
how
way
I do.
better.
Yeah.
Scripting doesn't work for me.
So do you know? And most people don't believe this. So I had it was an 8-hour long event. Right. We had I had Ryan Serhant of $1 Million Listing was my speaker and my keynote speaker in Asbury Park at House of Independence. So we had this it was a real estate event that I held for all the real estate agents in the tri-state.
Right.
And we sold it out, and we had 500 people there. And I'm sorry, the seating was 500, and they told us, the door clicker told us we had almost 600 people there. So people were standing.
Oh my God.
But again, Ryan Serhant, we marketed it the right way. But so 8 hours, I didn't have one script on anything. And I had 5 speakers, obviously, they were sitting there in the back, in the back room, like holy shit, I gotta get up there. But for me though, I'm like you. Like I can't do that. I need to get up there. I know what I want to talk about, of course, right? Mm-hmm. So I know my industry, I know what I say, I know what I do, but I can't do the whole teleprompter. Anytime I do have to do those things, like I've done it in the past, anytime I've been on like a news channel or done stuff like that, I hate it. It's like obviously sometimes you got to do it, right? But so we're kind of like rare. Like it's not most people hate that.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you do that too.
But I'll tell you right now, if you would have talked to me as a kid, I wanted to hide under the table if anybody looked at me. If the teacher called on me, I was a totally different person.
So what shifted you?
The Heart Association did. It was a boot camp for me because there was one of the head people from Bristol Myers Squibb was the chair of my event, and I was scared to death to go speak. And he said to me, "What could they possibly take away from you that you came with today? What would they actually physically or emotionally take from you if you flubbed your words?" And it made me really think about the fact that we are always so worried about being judged all the time, and that's something that is big that I talk a lot about, is that judgment piece stops us and makes us even be afraid of who we are and sharing who we truly are.
Yeah.
So that it helped me in my speaking to stop. I was stuttering. I was getting nervous. I was afraid of all the judging eyes in the room. So a lot of times when I go out and I do my own speaking, I'll say, "Okay, how many people, raise your hand, judged my shoes, my hair, and my outfit today?" And everybody kind of is like, "Oh, I disarm them," because they did. We all do that, right, when we first see someone. So it's very interesting. Judgment is a terrible thing, and that's what scared me the most.
Yeah. See, it's a good thing you didn't get John, circa 2017, to speak at MODC or even your podcast, because when I first started doing speaking engagements, I was always very, very aggressive in terms of I would come on for perfect example. So LIM in New York, the college LIM, Rowan and Rutgers, and there's one more. I forget what other college, but every time that I got hired, I always had my HR person would be like, "Hey, this college wants you to speak there," and so they would send my press kit, "Hey, John, here's what he speaks on," whatever else. But they would always include "Hey, he has a sailor's mouth, and he's going to be really aggressive with your crowd because he wants engagement." And I'm still going to do that at MODC. I'm probably going to shake a couple people there, but I do it now way more professionally. Back then, so at Rowan, I'm here. There's 600, or I forget the number of people that were in the room, the college students, and there was a panel, and I opened up with, "Does anybody give a fuck about anything I'm going to say today?" And everybody started laughing in the crowd, right? Holy shit, did he just say that?
Yeah.
And then the lady who was running the event was like, "Holy shit, did he just say that?" Like, what the? Because all the other speakers were like corporate people that are like, hey, yeah, so today we're going to talk about finances. So, and I went up there, I was like, who gives a fuck about any of this shit, right? But I had the most engagement. So, that's the thing that if anybody's listening on that topic that really wants to be a better speaker, I learned this from Tony Robbins. I got coached back in the day in platinum coaching with Tony Robbins. Mm-hmm. And one thing that he said, he's like, listen, he goes, I don't care what anybody tells you. He's like, you can be, and now fast forward, this is me, or rewind, this is me when I'm like 22 years old. Right now I'm 33. He's like, if you're ever going to speak, know one thing. People are there because either they have to be for work or they want to learn and grow, but their attention spans are never going to give you their full attention. So you have to do something about that. So you either get up there and I remember the first time I actually saw him speak, he was cursing left and right and he was saying all these provocative things, but everybody's hooked. Like, wow, this guy's really freaking saying this shit. But you got to be careful, right? There's a balance because, at some events that I speak at, these corporate professionals have complained about it to like the panel.
Oh, no.
Like, oh yeah, like I've gotten that over the years. But they've said like, listen, like this guy got people in the room, so like it doesn't matter. Like he's gonna do what he does. So, but like the thing at the end of the day, it's like the advice I have for people who want to be better speakers. I like what the guy told you at the American Heart Association. My whole thing was when I first started, I didn't have any mentors. I was 17 when I first started my company. I was door knocking and stuff. And then the Brick Chamber of Commerce gave me my first venue to speak at, right? Because like I joined, they're like, all right, we're going to speak at this event. Cool, I went, and I stuttered my ass off. I went to it so confident, like, I don't give a shit, like, who cares? Right. I got up there, and I saw like 30, 40 people in the room. I'm like, holy shit, like, what am I saying? And I was stuttering my ass off.
Been there.
But you learn from those things, and you become better from those things. So my only point, though, is based on what that guy told you, my advice would be to even further that is, at the end of the day, the people who are going to judge you, right, would never get up there and do it anyway.
Exactly.
Right? And I'll do that sometimes when I'm speaking. So one of the things that I do that's kind of like you is I'll get up and I'll be like, hey, who here has ever publicly spoken before? Raise your hand. And then maybe 2 people will raise their hand in an average crowd, maybe 10. And I'll be like, great, so most of you never have, so you're not going to judge me today.
Thanks.
Right? And I'll joke around, whatever. But anyway, I think that's really great. What do you want your legacy to be? And I'm gonna give you a quick little exercise.
All right. Okay.
So I kind of gave you a little bit of it, but it's a little bit different. But most of us think about legacy where your feet are planted here today, and where you're going to be in the rest of your life. I want to reverse engineer this and kind of make it. We're gonna hope obviously it doesn't happen, right? But put it in the perspective of like almost like a simulation. So your daughters are at your gravestone, right, with their children, right. But their children never met you. Right. Right? So they're looking at that gravestone. What would it read?
She was a kind, hopefully this is what it reads.
Whoever does this, fucking did this.
Yeah, keep this straight now.
Yeah.
She was a kind, motivated, dedicated person who really enjoyed interacting with people of all different backgrounds. And her goal in life was always to connect people so that they could feel supported.
That's beautiful.
That was quick, off the cuff.
I know, but geez, I've had people cry with that because thinking about their kids and whatever. I've had people be like, stumbling upon it. You were just like, so I'm gonna put this on my grave.
Yeah, I don't know if they will. Yeah, I'm not praying that they will, but we'll see.
All right, and so before we wrap up here, is there any quote or adage that really stands out to you over the years that when you think about resilience? So like when I first started my first company. You already know the story, and most people listening already know my story, but, I had this struggle at 17. I was like, I want to find something that'll motivate me. Right? And so, I found this one. I'll tell you after, right? But, yeah, actually, I'll give it to you just so you can think a little bit. But so essentially it was live a few years of your life like most people won't, so you can live the rest of your life like most people can't. And I remember at the time, I'm door knocking in Brick Township, 2008. It's freezing, the financial crash. Nobody wants to do anything because of the economy, and it's December, freeze my ass off, and I had that. I printed it out. I put it in my bedroom at the time, my parents' house, and so when I woke up, I looked at it. It was right next to me, and then I had it in the bathroom when I brushed my teeth, and so I've always, and now it's out there on that painting. My chief operating officer Chris did that for me. Actually, it was very nice of him. He did that back in like 2014 or something, but that was mine. So is there any like a favorite quote that you have that's your like, because that's like my life quote. I apply it to everything. Is there anything that you have like that?
I don't know why I can't think of anything right this second, but what came to me, I'll just give you what
Yeah.
came to me
Yeah,
right this
yeah,
second.
yeah.
Sitting in an office, I was in the midst of figuring out if I wanted to take this job, and it was a quote that was right in front of me.
Yeah.
I don't have the whole thing in my head, but it started out with, "Today is the day." Okay, and then it was the day to whatever, you
Right.
know, and wound up being the name of my organization for the reason that I really took that to heart. Like, we
Right.
don't realize, and so I have a saying that I put out there that today's the day you can't go back to yesterday, and you do not yet own tomorrow. And when you really take that in, it really makes you make different decisions
Right.
because of the fact of perspective.
Right.
So I think I probably have a ton of them that I just can't think of right now, but when
Yeah.
I think about that specific saying, that the today is the day piece, which was so simplistic that I was almost not even sure I was going to use that as my name of my organization.
Yeah.
But people, for some reason, really connect with it now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very common, but at the end of the day, my point to everybody is, we always think there's a tomorrow, and we always are sitting back and thinking about what we did, judging
Right.
ourselves for yesterday.
Yeah.
Instead of wherever your feet are. Well,
Yeah.
that is one quote I've heard. Wherever your feet are is where your head should be. And that is exactly the
Be
truth.
where your feet are. I love that. Jodi, I love that. Now, I want to dive deeper there for a quick sec
Yeah.
before we wrap up here, because I think that's so important for anybody listening, because most people listen to this that are looking to grow in their careers or build their business or, really grow, right? Personal development. So, like, the one thing, though, that I love about that is most procrastinators, and by nature, I am a mother effing procrastinator.
Same.
Right? Like, when I was in school and stuff, like, my homework would be pushed, or that project or whatever that would be pushed to the very last second that I could do it. Like, I would never be ahead of the game. And, like, the thing is like, one of my clients kind of said this to me in a way where he said to me, he goes, I have to do all this stuff, whatever. And I said to him, like, just do it tomorrow. Like, because we were trying to go out to a happy hour. But just do it tomorrow. He goes, why would I give myself a headache tomorrow with the problems that I can get done today? And I'm like, oof, that hit me. I'm like, okay, so do the hard work today, right? And I'm applying it to business, but do the hard work today.
That's right.
Because that's all you have, actually, technically, right?
That's
to your
it.
point, right?
Oh,
Like,
it is.
All we know that we have is today, right?
Yeah, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
That's what your tattoo says, right, Neil? All we have is today on his back. Great dude. But at the end of the day, it's like, that's such a true statement. It sounds so cliche.
It does. That's the thing.
It's cringy.
It is cringy, but at the end of the day, it's real.
But it's real.
It's very
all
real.
We have is today. So I love that. So, Jodi, where can people listening to this find you and engage with you and learn more about you and the organizations you're in and be able to kind of contact you?
Well, each one has its own, but I will tell you the mom.
Give them you first.
Me
Yeah.
first. So
Yeah.
me first is Jodi at todaysthedayliveit.com
Yep.
personally, like that, my personal business. And then
You're good at naming businesses.
Yes.
Today's the day.
Today's the
I'm
day.
gonna
Live
start
it.
reaching out to you when
Today's
people are
the
like,
day, liveit.com.
what should my client name their business? All right, keep going. Sorry.
And then, one of the things we didn't really talk about was the Monmouth Ocean Development Council, which
Yeah.
I really love, and connecting businesses
Yeah.
so that they can grow and thrive here in Monmouth and Ocean County
Yes.
and beyond. And so modc.com
Yep.
is where you can find all of our information, or Jodi and Jodi at modc.com. And then if anybody's interested in my nonprofit, it's Jodi at applaudourkids.com. So
love it.
we've got a couple of different
I love it.
websites, email addresses. It's a lot of fun.
But go to yours primarily so they can find you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Because I'm sure you can find all these through you.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Is
You're the
anything.
central hub.
I am the central hub. MODC, I am the CEO of that, and that's really very business focused, and
Yeah.
everything else personal development or
Yeah.
the nonprofit.
Awesome. Well, Jodi, thank you. I believe time is one asset we don't get back. So you spending it here with me today and our listeners today means the world to me. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I really appreciate
Bam.
it.
You got to hit the hype button. Let's go. Love it. Good stuff.